Hi everyone, I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From, number 148 with Ona. Um, I am in week 3 of this pinched nerve pain, and it is still rough. Like I am in pain right now. So any of anyway, so ouch. I managed to read a book, which I'm actually kind of impressed with myself. I read Leslie Jamison's Splinters, and it's a beautiful book. Uh, her I read it. I'm have a hard time right now doing much of anything, so I was impressed that I read that and had the attention span. Hi,
Hi, Allison. I'm
Ona.
so you're in pain.
Oh my God. I feel like I should feel better. It's been 3 weeks, but it
Hmm,
still really hurts.
I'm sorry. I feel you should feel better too.
I know, and whenever I have pain, I just feel so much compassion for people who live with it every day. I just feel like it's a hard thing to get up and have hope and be like, okay, I'm going to do all these things. You just kind of want to feel, especially when you can't sleep, which I've been having trouble with.
Oh,
It's you feel really wrung out,
yeah,
you know?
that's so,
Just like
yeah.
um so yeah, I've been doing a lot of crying at random moments. So I'm
Mm,
you know, because you're so tired and you're just like, oh
yeah.
God. Anyway, I may cry at your poem. I try not to cry, but I'm not 100%. So how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And I want to name this a cry-free zone. Anyone's free to cry.
Yeah, I mean, normally yeah, that's how I am, but I just don't, I try not to make people feel, if they're reading, and I'm crying, I don't want them to feel like, I don't know, responsible or uncomfortable in any way. So, but so have you done readings with your memoir? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And how has that been?
Oh,
And
yeah.
does anyone cry?
People have cried.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
I've held it together somehow.
I know it's hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm reading stuff, it like just hits you in it. Well, I mean, I find because I read all my work out loud, before I share it with anyone
Yeah.
else. Um,
See.
and and sometimes it'll get me. I mean, I feel like that's good when that happens. It's
Yeah.
success in some way, but
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. I feel the same way when my throat closes up, or if I keep getting up, like out of my chair, I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm onto something.
Oh,
You know,
interesting. Like you've hit a
I've
something.
hit a nerve that I kind of
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And you have to give yourself grace and not spend too much time there, I think, too. Like when you know you've hit a wound, you have to not, I can't spend too much time there for the benefit of the rest of my life.
Mm,
Like I have to parse it out or like do it in pieces.
that's that's really smart. I haven't gotten that smart yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard. I think it's something I avoided for much of my writing life, writing about myself, because it's a different kind of experience than writing about characters who may have many similar experiences to yourself, but you still have that
Yeah,
protection.
yeah, that creates just enough distance.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like plausible deniability or something. Like, oh no, it's a character. Um, so, anything else before you read your poem?
I think I interrupted you right before you were going to say what you've been reading.
Oh, I read Leslie Jamison's Splinters, and I was saying I'm so proud of myself that I read a book.
I read that too.
um, and I think, her sentences, I was saying on a sentence level, she's just like, I don't know how much she edits but like, she's definitely very motivated, I think, by having sentences that are striking. Like, I feel that as I'm reading her work.
I feel the same. If it wasn't a library book, I would have underlined a lot of her sentences.
Yeah, I take pictures.
Oh, that's smart.
That's what I do. So it's like, and sometimes I will look back at them and think, what did I do? Why did I take a picture of this? But usually I will know what struck me. And I appreciate all the conversations about early motherhood because it is such a unique time that is life changing was for me.
Oh, for me too.
Yeah. Um, so I really I found so many of those descriptions, and I thought she must have kept journals, which I mean she talks about it, but it's like because it's kind of a blur too at the same time.
Yeah.
Because speaking of not sleeping.
Yeah, it's a blur, but she creates it.
Hmm.
It's so vivid. You're like,
Hmm.
I felt I was
Hmm.
reliving those early days by reading it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was really powerful. So yes, okay. Would you like to read your poem?
Sure. Um, where I'm from damp wood slabs and flip flops, boardwalk knishes and beach pails, sand grit, sand grit peaches and black shells with watercolor paintings inside. I'm from leg brace and heavy night shoe. From why do you walk like that? And everyone's got something. From there's nothing you can't do. And here, let me do that for you. I'm from my mom's breakfast of Senka and donuts. My dad's mirrored cans of tobacco. My sister's secret cigarettes and smoke rings. From pinky swear you won't tell. And don't you ever start smoking these. I'm from the two-family house where the girl upstairs ran from between parked cars to catch the ice cream truck and got stuck at 7 years old. From a house with a house above it that now held an absence, or a ghost who could hear me thinking when I wondered where they took her toys. I'm from where the wild things are and Harold's crayon, which was purple and magic. From wax lips and candy buttons at Milty's. From color forms, pickup sticks, and Malibu Barbie, who was popular and pretty, though her shoes fell off and she walked on her toes like me. I'm from Where's Your Sister? And we don't know. She's a runaway. From You Wouldn't Change the Locks, Would You? When I picked up the extension. From a yellow room with two twin beds, but most nights, only me in it. From leaving on a jet plane on the radio. Maybe I'll come home in the spring on TV. Thank
Beautiful.
you. I really liked writing it.
Yeah, that would be I well, I would just want to say it really oh, oops, I just heard a really crazy sound. So I I have not read your memoir yet because it is going to be a selection for the Sibling Lost Book Club. So I'm trying to read it closer to when we're going to discuss it. But I am really looking forward to reading it. And I know it talks about your sister who also appears in the poem. And um,
Yeah.
was there overlap between your book and this poem, or did you find new territory, or was it? I just curious for you how, what the experience was.
I would say there's a lot of overlap. You know, I don't have a very vivid memory, which is
Mm.
not a great trait for a memoirist.
I think it happens a lot though with trauma, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I didn't understand that for a
Mm.
long time. That,
Yeah,
that I
you're
would
just like, what's wrong
associate
with my brain?
exactly. Exactly. And then
Yeah.
I read Nick Flynn's I'm trying to think of the title. It's about when his house burnt down
Mm-hmm.
and he and his mother set the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's and he there was a line in it where he said the other kids could remember the names of their second grade teacher or who sat behind them. And I thought, that's why I don't have those
Mm-hmm.
memories. It's,
Yeah.
usually I would just feel ashamed, embarrassed that
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't call up whole people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there was so much strife in my house growing up that, we played a lot of pretend to get away from it. And
Right.
I stayed in that dissociative state a lot of.
For sure. I heard a lot in meetings. I would go to Al Anon, adult children of alcoholics, and a lot of people talking about magical thinking and how
Mm,
dissociative they were because of survival. And just I the really just remembering key events and being much more remembering where what the worlds were that they were inhabiting in order to survive.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it's incredibly common, but yeah, I think there's shame associated with it, especially because of I think our cultural nostalgia for childhood.
Yeah. So when I was working on the poem, I kind of was feeling like, come on, don't you have anything new?
hmm But no, there's no pressure to have anything. I mean, I like this poem, obviously. Um, but part of the reason is because it did help me just get really, really granular with some of my memories,
Mm.
and it helped me realize how much I do remember.
Oh,
But and I've done it multiple times, and I think just the prompt is now kind of ingrained in my being. And so when I write, I will question like, oh, what else was going on there? And I have gotten much better, and I think therapy has helped at sitting in memories longer,
mm.
and being present and also believing myself, because I really struggled with that. And being like, oh yeah, this is true. This is how I remember it. And we can have conversations about memory and the truth or whatever. But as a person who's just trying to heal, believing myself and the truth of those memories is very important.
That's so interesting because I've never articulated not believing
Mm.
myself in so many words. But when I was researching for my book and things would prove me
Yeah, it
right,
feels so
it
good.
hit me, you know?
Really feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like I'll do that with a song or, something. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, like I was right. And even I was talking with my mom about my memoir and how there's illegal activities that occur in it and how I didn't know if I'd be able to include them for that reason. And she's like, well, I'm here. I can say that happened, and so can your brother. And just even the way that she sort of nonchalantly was like, well, of course that happened. Feels good too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I don't have anyone from
Yeah. It's hard, right? Yeah.
family, so I don't have that check.
Yeah. Yeah. So believe, yeah, it does help for sure. But I just think it's really difficult. And gaslighting is a term that's overused, I understand. But I think in this situation, it's true for both of us. Like you're getting so successfully gaslit that it really gets in you. Like it becomes part of your system to doubt yourself. I mean, that's the goal. And so to
Yeah.
untangle that is a like, I mean, for me, it's a life's work kind of.
And the world, just not trusting the world
Mm-hmm.
quite to be solid underneath me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so the little girl died.
She did. And you know what's amazing? I just thought about this the other day. The picture that I sent to you of me
Mm-hmm.
as a girl, that's a hand-me-down of hers. Not
Oh my goodness.
not from after she died.
Right, right.
It, you know,
It all
anything about,
just disappeared, I would guess.
but it was my first
Oh
bikini.
my
I remember
goodness.
that it had been Lisa's, and I wasn't
So did she
that
get
when
hit by the ice cream truck?
she got hit running for the ice cream
Oh
truck.
God.
She
That's like the
ran
mm-hmm,
from parked
mm-hmm.
cars, and I learned in adulthood from her mother that it was a neighbor who was watching her at
Oh,
the time, and let her go. Like, can I go get ice cream
sure.
and let her do it without watching her? And
Wow.
yeah,
That's another layer of uh,
she,
to
she
unpack.
was 7 and I was 5, so to
Mm.
lose a peer that young, I just sort of had this awareness of mortality so early.
It's really formative, I think.
Yeah. And she shows up in my book in a way
Mm.
that I wasn't expecting.
That is one of the beautiful things about writing about ourselves. For
Yeah.
me, it feels like a project of reclamation. Like
Oh,
I'm,
absolutely. For me
yeah,
too.
yeah. Wow, that is really obviously tragic. But I felt like your descriptions of wondering where her toys went, like how unspoken. I think grief still is, but back then, erasure was sort of the way.
And I felt guilty about it because I had always coveted her toys. Her father actually worked for Mattel. So
Yeah.
she would get these really
Mm-hmm.
toys before they even were in the stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't it funny how we have guilt about just really almost anything connected to death,
Yeah.
as if we
There
could have
was a,
controlled it, or as if we could have behaved differently and it wouldn't have happened, you know?
right, right. Or differently
Yeah,
beforehand somehow.
yeah. I think that kind of idea of like the butterfly effect or something is, I think like, oh well, if if I mean, with my brother, it was, oh, if we'd said, this or done this, or this wouldn't have happened, and yeah,
Yeah.
there's a million what if kind of scenarios associated. And I think, especially when it's an accident, but even in any situation, it's like, how could we have changed the outcome?
Yeah. There was, my sister was a runaway.
Yeah.
And my parents started sending her away to what I discovered, only as an adult were reform schools and really harsh places.
Right.
But the first time they said it was going to happen, it didn't.
Mm,
I'd been so upset and worried all day in school, and then got home and she was there, and it was just a warning. And
mm,
so the next time I didn't believe
mm-hmm.
them, and I was, just kind of walked around perfectly happy all day long, just assuming it was like, okay, that's how it works. And I got home and she wasn't there, and I thought, I didn't worry. If
Mm-hmm.
I had worried, she
Mm-hmm.
would be here. And I
Mm-hmm.
carried that for years. And I still have that magical thinking around like worry being my job as a way to make everything okay.
Yeah, I think that's a surprisingly common trait. If I worry about it, it won't happen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And if I fail to worry about it, somehow that'll,
Hmm.
you know, shift
Yeah.
shift the universe.
Well, we come up with a lot of systems to make things survivable, to believe that we have power in a situation where we're powerless.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one, or, it's just a form of hypervigilance. But, this like, um, yeah, well, mine was perfection.
Mm.
If I'm perfect, I'll be okay. The problem with perfect is the goalposts keep moving. Um,
And it's
and
an awful lot of work.
it is pretty joyless in enterprise. But but much I think like the worrying, it's its own reward. Like even though it's joyless, it is like, okay, well, I checked all the boxes today, and I'm still here, and every other, it's working.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was something too that I talk about a lot in therapy, just all of the things that I did to believe I had power. And also I think at the same time to accept that whatever was going wrong was my fault, because that felt much safer than believing I wasn't safe.
Mm.
It's like, oh sure, I'm the problem. That's good. I can fix me.
Wow. That's
So
so much pressure.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it was so, I mean, it was just, and I internalized it, and I went for it. I was um, really motivated to make it
Mm.
work. I think, children are very motivated to live.
Yeah. And have the people they count on live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's sort of sometimes when people say kids are resilient, I'm like, well, I mean, the bill comes due eventually, but yes, they can survive
Yeah.
a lot.
Right. But that doesn't mean it's not at a tremendous
Right.
cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so, any other thoughts on the experience of writing your poem?
It was an interesting exercise. I was familiar with the poem, and
Sure.
interestingly, I was thinking about doing it in a writing workshop with some teenagers that I'm going to be doing soon. And I looked back at a similar workshop I had done to see what prompt did I give them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was where I'm
So,
from 2 years ago. I don't know how I forgot that, but this time, even though it's not a particularly long um,
mm-hmm.
rendition of the poem, I was surprised that I got as many aspects of the childhood in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that took a while for me to figure out. Like, do I just zero in on,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
disability? Do I zero in on my sister? Do I zero in on, the Saint
Lisa.
Lisa?
I mean, I thought it was an incredibly vivid poem. I felt like I was there, and I was like, "What beach are they at?"
Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay, I knew it was East Coast, because the like landmarks of East Coast beaches, that's not the right word that I'm quite looking for, are different than West Coast beaches. Like it's just there's something. Well, the boardwalks being wooden planks is one. Um,
As
uh,
opposed to smooth cement,
yep.
right?
So that, but also the shells. I feel like that's more of an East Coast thing too.
Hmm.
The painted shells. But because I grew up on the beach, so whenever anyone writes about the beach, I feel a kinship, even if it's even though I know it's not my beach, it still feels like I feel such a recognition because I feel like in a lot of ways the ocean is like was my best parent. And so
Hmm.
when I hear other people, I feel I think somehow grateful that they also had that.
Yeah. The, it was. I always thought everyone had a beach
Yeah,
that
yeah.
everyone could walk to the
Hmm.
ocean. I
Or that they
also,
have something, that they have something, it takes a while to realize, oh, some people like just don't have that relationship. And it was so formative for me.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We start out thinking what we have is
Mm. Oh, for sure.
what's available.
Hmm. Yeah. Everyone's family's like mine. And then you're like, oh, wait, no, actually, no. Okay. This is interesting.
My parents, they bickered
Mhm.
constantly, 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 and I just thought, well, that's how parents talk to each other. They just fight. And I was at a friend's house once, and her parents were joking around and they were flirting,
Mhm.
and I was shocked. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
know. I didn't know you could have fun with your partner.
I feel like that was much less common then than it is now in general. Like I felt like because I'm thinking of my childhood experience, and for me it was more just like, oh, this is just even any kind of like sort of white picket fence thing was just always like, oh wow, look at this, like two parents, like I don't know, relating in sort of a way that feels like TV. That always was like, uh, but I just felt like in general marital strife was more, or maybe it was more out in the open then,
And people probably stayed in bad marriages
for sure.
longer, um, and also felt more pressure to get married, regardless of
Right.
whether they found the right person.
Right. And yes, there's definitely a lot more I mean getting pregnant or feeling forced into things and um I think there's a lot more now of trying to find someone who feels like a partner.
Yeah.
Um
And to know who you are
yeah.
before you
Yep.
go there.
Yep. Yeah. Where I was very much encouraged by my mother, like take your time,
Mm.
not a race, like get to know yourself, like and she definitely, I mean, she wasn't getting advice at all. So she certainly wasn't getting that advice. Like, get out, go do your thing, go. There was no advice happening. So yeah, it was, I find divorce statistics interesting and how certain groups are less common. Divorce is less common and it's often, it's people who marry later with more education and just like you say, more knowing, I think, of themselves and their desires.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so I I married someone totally wrong for me. Now I'm married to the right person. But
I feel like that also is more common than it was then too.
yeah,
Kind of that first, like, oh no, moving on, instead of laying roots in that place.
yeah,
So I think there was just so much shame, much more shame around divorce than there is
definitely.
now.
My mother actually was divorced in
Mhm.
1950 of
Wow.
all periods, and
Wow.
I think married my father because she felt so
Yeah.
shamed
Oh,
by
yeah.
being a single mother, being divorced. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have friends with that similar scenario. Um, and sometimes the guy was a savior and sometimes the guy was a monster, who came in with the single mother with the children. Like sometimes it was like as calling for him, like, oh, this is my family, this is where I'm at. And for others it was an opportunity to get away with behavior that they couldn't get away with somebody else.
yeah, yeah. In my father's case, he wouldn't accept my mother's children, so she let them go.
God. Oh God. Sorry. That's just
No, it was. I mean, he was very sweet to me. He was a really
oh.
good father to me, but he didn't have the capacity to love someone else's children in that way.
So my father was a widower and my mother married him and he had 4 children and she adopted them.
Oh,
So different, exact sort of opposite. And I think that also being a woman marrying a widower, it was like a different and a widower, not a divorcee. I mean, she jokes about, she watched The Sound of Music and it like, like it was like her, book, her guide to life. It's like, okay, marry this guy, adopt his kids, less singing. Um, And she joked that she had the Von Traps on she was a flight attendant. She had the Von Traps on a flight after she'd married my father and that they were miserable. She was like,
oh,
oh.
now they tell her.
So, wow. Have you reconnected with those siblings or are they just,
Yeah,
mhm.
I didn't actually know they were my
Oh,
siblings.
oh,
In
wow. I've heard that story too. Hmm.
my book, but
Hmm.
I didn't know until I was 14 going on 15 that my mother finally revealed it. We thought they were distant cousins,
Yes. Hmm.
but my half sister in particular looked so much like me. But, I'd seen the Patty Duke show, so I thought, okay, cousins can look really similar.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah. And then of course they knew. That's what my mind is always when I hear these stories.
They knew, and they weren't allowed to reveal it. They weren't allowed to call their mother mom, and they were really young
Hmm.
when that decision was made. They were adults by the time I knew.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow.
yeah,
I think also DNA tests, have revealed a lot of secrets
yeah,
that people never thought would be revealed. Um, like a surprising amount of people, their parents, their siblings. So I think your situation is more common than one might imagine.
yeah. I think you're right. You can't donate sperm anymore and check the box and expect it to be anonymous.
Mm. No. And then you get the ones who just, there's so many children. That one also makes my mind. Um, what that must be like when you start discovering you have so many biological siblings.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, any other last thoughts? I've held it together. I'm very proud of myself with my pain. My husband's like, just reschedule. Like, I already rescheduled once. And it also brings me such joy doing this. And I think
Oh,
that's also a balance too when you're going through something like, you don't want to just lay around all day hollering about how much it hurts.
no, and you need things to look for.
It's like, okay, I can't really just do this all day. I mean, I can, but I'd rather not. So any other last thoughts, Ona?
Oh, just that I really love talking to you, and I'm very happy to be a
Thank
distraction from your pain.
you. I really appreciate it. And I read your poem and I was like, but I want to hear her read this. Like, this is what I want to do. And talk to her. I thought I really enjoyed the conversation. And I agree with your poem. You were able to cover so much and so little. And I think that's the excitement of poetry, right? We're able to touch on so many things in a way, and I think oftentimes find connections that we or I might not have seen before.
Oh,
And that's always really satisfying.
yeah. I think my poetry brain knows a lot more than my daily brain.
I think that's true. And I think if we open ourselves up to it, and I think this prompt helps, or any prompt, but I love the specificity of this prompt, we can find we can find how much we remember. And it definitely, I think, along with therapy, has really helped me sit in the moments I do remember and like let them wash over me and like, oh, this happened. And not just the horrific ones, but also the day to day, like being at the beach, and having the seaweed tangled around my ankles and like what that felt like. And I can remember that little girl, and um, I just feel like give her so much grace. Uh,
Yeah, a lot more
and
for her.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's a gift.
It is. Well, I love that you're doing this.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. It gives us like the weekly nature of it. It's become a rhythm of my life.
It is a gift.
Yeah.
And it's a gift that you give to all of us too.
Well, thank you. That's lovely of you to say. I'm I'm happy to do it. So it was a real pleasure talking to you, Ona. I knew it would be, and thank you for taking the time and writing your poem and being here.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you, Allison.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
I I hope the pain goes away very
Thank you.
soon, very
Me
fully.
too. Me too. Okay, I'm gonna raise my hands above my head after I said just shake. Okay.
I'll be
Okay.
thinking of you.
Bye.